show. I told my engineers we need to get on to this show today, regardless of what is on the agenda. The show today we're going to deal with is gun control. Do we need it? Yes or no? Gun control. There's a formula for democracy. Notice my words. There is a formula in democracy that has worked since 1871. Every time it's used, it works. It gives out positive results. The formula, I have no idea where it came from, but I've read a couple of books. I didn't read them. I know of a couple of books where they use the formula and try to act like they come up with it. I'm telling you that this formula has been used for hundreds of years. In America, they have used it on us very successfully since I would estimate the founding of United States. Now, the formula is called CC equals S. You can call it a geometry problem, a mathematical problem. You can call it anything you want, but when you plug in words like the first C stands for chaos, second C stands for crises, and the S stands for solution. I want everybody to get in on this today because we need to discuss this, because we're moving into a complete police state. And they're pouring on with the formula CC equals S. The S in America today, or better yet, in the United States of America, this fictitious government that has total control, fictitious control, pseudo control over United States of America, all of America. Their solution, or what they're after as an end result, is to take away the guns. I'll say it again. CCS. CC equals S. C plus C equals S. The S stands for take away the guns. Completely take away the guns. So what you have to do if you are in control of anything that belongs to the corporation, and we're talking about United States of America, you must create chaos. Through chaos, you have to feed it so it becomes a crisis. And once you have the crisis at an all-time high, then you come in with the solution. So let's go back. Let's go back to the Civil War era. Let's go back to 1855. Let's go back to 1825, 15. Let's go back in time, prior to 1855. What happened? What happened during that era was the United States, the 13 colonies, had the agenda of CCS. The S at that time stood for conquering America. Now, we have never been defeated as a people, but we've been tricked into complete servitude. So everything they did when they first founded the so-called Virginia colony, the founding fathers, or quote unquote the Masonic order, quote unquote the Illuminati, all the secret orders were under one ruling, and that was chaos, crisis, and solution. That's their weapon to victory. And as long as you've been on earth, every one of you out there, that's all you've encountered. Chaos, crisis, and then you give in. It's all on the agenda. You got to wake the hell up. Okay? So we know we are in a police state, but we're in a semi-police state. Because believe it or not, those Europeans, better yet, stop that talk, Ron. Those corporate and corporation officers, may it be police, may it be any institution in the United States of America, none of them want to die. They're living too good on earth. Why would they want to die? They don't care about you. Never have. Stop this madness. Stop begging for recognition. Black lives matter. To who? And let's not get confused on these quote unquote so-called, notice I do, listen to me, quote unquote so-called Europeans. Those whites, 80 to 90% of all whites that join in on this protest on your side are mulattoes. Those are not Peckerwoods. Those are not Europeans. They're mulattoes. And believe me, they can go either way, with or without you. Yes, they feel sorry for what's happening to you because they're listening and thinking it could happen to them. Why not use you on the front line? The Jews did it with NAACP. You think they founded that for your salvation? A Peckerwood organization, white president, white secretary, white trustees, the Spingard brothers. Are you out of your damn mind? And the first order of business was to bring in jackleg, dumbass preachers and surely get the boulets, surely get the light complected, surely get the mulattoes. Y'all better wake the hell up. And this is not an angry presentation. This is a truthful presentation. The Jews don't care anything about you. When they had the signs up and they was killing black folks, they killed the Jew just as much fast as they could find them. Civil rights era, Viola Liuzzo out of Detroit area, 2 Jew boys and a blackie, all were murdered, hung up, burned. Come on, y'all. The European so-called leaders of, or better yet, the founding fathers of the corporation used all the mulattoes they could find to help produce this madness that we're in today, known as the States of America. You have to really be careful when you read his story. They portrayed George Washington as being a white boy. Y'all answer me this question. Have you ever met a Peckerwood named George Washington? No. Why is that? They try to cover it up. They try to go through a lot of hookups and different changes. But you've never seen one, never heard of one, but George Washington. And you know how the European loves to use historical names to project him into society, especially on the political front. So if you could find a white boy that was an ancestor or a relative of, an heir of George Washington, surely he would put that on the front burner and you would know about it. They cannot produce it because that George Washington did not exist. 99.9% of his story is a fabrication, a creation of historical revisionism. And you got to be careful because historical revisionism, if you have the money, the power, you can have your constituents write books, and believe me, before long, and make the masses go to school. Believe me, it's going to become a reality. Just like it to you, you're sitting around today, cannot figure out why you're being treated so bad. Why have you or are you being treated so bad? You have no idea. And when I tell you, when they formulated the 13 colonies, it was written in their laws in the 13 colonies that you, as a black, quote unquote, Negro, but you, as what they call them, African heritage, African heritage, could never, ever, ever become a citizen of United States. That's in the 13th Amendment. Why are none of our educated ones today talking about that? I'm going to flip real quick and look up. I'm going for it right now. I'm going to look up the 20 sections of the 13th Amendment. And I'm going to read number 12 to you. Let me see if I can get it up. Dropout. There we go. You know I'm a high school dropout. I can't get it too good, too fast, but I got it today. If all goes well, I'm going to read it to you. I don't know why I can't pump it. Put it down here first. You go. Okay. I believe the 13th Amendment that they all are so proud of. I heard a professor this weekend had the audacity to say whenever there is a complete chaos crisis, although it's a major tragedy, something good always comes out of it. He said, Civil War, we got the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. This was a professor of Harvard. He was I want to call him a Hindu, but he was from India type, or Pakistan. Pakistani or Indian, from India. He said there, and it was 5 panels, 2 blacks, it was 3 panels. Excuse me. It was 5 panels, 2 black guests, 1 white guest, a black female commentator, and this Asian professor from Yale. And he said that I looked at my wife, and she looked at me and said, what did he say? He said that although we fall into a lot of tragedy with the race question in America, we always get something out of it, such as the Civil War gave us the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. That is complete CCS. We're going to come back to that. So I got the 13th Amendment up. when you look up the 13th Amendment, or when you were taught the 13th Amendment, they didn't tell you that it was only two. They led you to believe that there was only two sections. Section 1 said there'll be no more slavery in the United States. Everybody got happy. Number 2, there will be no involuntary servitude. I'll look that up if anyone wants to challenge me on that. Now, the original and the real 13th Amendment has 20 sections. And Section 12 says this: the traffic in slaves with Africa to hereby forever prohibited on pain of death and the forfeiture of all the rights and property of persons engaged therein. You can't get any clearer than that. That's what they used for Section 1 when they taught it to you in school. But they didn't go to the second portion of Section 1. And it reads, and the descendants of Africa shall not be citizens. And they use a small c, so they're talking about citizens of United States. And where we at? And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. Go look it up for yourself. This kind of stuff, I fear ignorance more than anything. I fear ignorance more than death. Can I do that? I guess I can. I'm sitting here with a people that are bonded or bound by ignorance or no education of self, no knowledge of self. And here's a professor who will swear that he is in your corner. And he has the audacity on national television to say the 13th Amendment was in your favor. And neither one of them, the other two blacks, were professors also. They didn't say a word. Oh, they didn't read. That's scary. Let me read that one more time before we get off of it. Section 12 of the 13th Amendment states, the traffic in slaves with Africa is hereby forever prohibited on the pain of death and the forfeiture of all the rights and property of persons engaged therein. And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. Why didn't they mention no more white slavery? And let's be sure that the 13th Amendment was retroactively ratified, so-called ratified, in 1865. Come on, y'all. You gotta stay with me on this. Now, the international banksters and the Pope Pius IX, with the leadership of Pope Pius IX, and I believe, I'm not sure of the King of England. It couldn't have been King George. But the King of England and the Pope Pius IX were benefactors of the corporation known as United States of America, Inc. Because an archbishop by the name of Derrick McLeod filed paperwork in Delaware to create this corporation. But once they created the corporation, they discovered that there were no subjects. See, when you create a corporation, the purpose of the corporation is to create monies. And in order to create monies, you got to have a plan or a direction of creating it. So when General Motors goes into its corporation, it has a plan that, number one, they're going to take the people, the citizens, small c, of United States of America, Inc., and produce automobiles, and then they're going to sell them all over the world, and they, General Motors, will pay the citizens to produce or manufacture these automobiles. All corporations are set up that way. Even a trust, which is the same as a corporation, it's set up that way. There always has to be some benefactor to the trust / corporation. This is common sense. Now, I told you that there are a couple, I don't know any more than, I know one for sure. One trust, quote unquote, corporation, that's under a Siskiyou trust. It only has two components. All other corporations have 3 components: the donor, the benefactor, the one that sets it up, the trustee, and the beneficiaries. But for some reason, I don't know who did it, where it comes from, but for some reason, the Siskiyou account does not have a benefactor, because I can't explain it, but the corporation makes the contract with the beneficiary. So they're in a Siskiyou account, you only have trustees and beneficiaries. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. But that's a international common law from way back. That's all I can tell you. But these other corporations and trusts all have 3 components. Now, when they set up the United States of America, they did not have benefactors or beneficiaries. There were no subjects. Why were you setting it up? You had the trustees. They were set up because Derek McLeod appointed 2 trustees to run the corporation. But to benefit who? Now we go back to that professor when he said the 14th Amendment. Good gracious. The 14th Amendment only created the small c for citizens. And in the small c of citizens, the wise individuals, I'm looking right at it here. I just saw it. I know where it is. Don't panic, I got it. They saw fit to use the 14th Amendment not to strip the original Constitution, but to modify the original Constitution. They had no right, no authority. So they said in the 14th Amendment, Supreme Court of the United States has ruled that the rights belong to the individual. We're talking about the Second Amendment. You have a right to bear arms. While also ruling that the right is not unlimited and does not prohibit all regulations of either firearms or similar devices. Now they're going to modify it. I want to read the 13th Amendment. They don't say a damn thing about what kind of weapon, because they only had flint rifles back in them days. You know what they got today. But today you can call them similar devices. They're weapons. The state and local government are limited to the same extent as the federal government from infringing this right per the incorporation of the Bill of Rights. Thought I had the section when they talked about the 14th Amendment. They modified the 14th Amendment so that they could have a right to set up limitations for gun rights, but only if you are a 14th Amendment citizen. That idiot sitting at the table with that PhD, think about it now. We talk about it all the time. I talk about it. You get rewarded and get benefits if you're an idiot. All idiots are rewarded and benefited because they're idiots. Why? They don't resist. That's why you're an idiot. You don't know your rights. You don't care about your rights. You don't exercise your rights. So by law, you don't have any rights. And any individual without rights is a slave. I don't give a hoot what they try to tell you. Try to be a smart aleck. Okay? Now, when we read the 14th Amendment, it says the United States Constitution protects the right of the people to keep and bear arms and was adopted in December 15, 1791. We did that when we gave them the contract. We told them that we have a right to bear arms. You have a right to bear arms. No big deal. It's a part of the 10 amendments contained in the Bill of Rights. So the right to bear arms is part of the Bill of Rights. But once you accept the fact that you are a 14th Amendment citizen, I'm looking at it, I got it. Listen. The Second Amendment has most recently been interpreted to grant the right of gun ownership to individuals for purposes that includes self-defense. It gets back to that damn law that they use. We can't use it, but they use it. At first, it was thought to apply only to the federal government, but through the mechanisms of the 14th Amendment, it has been applied to the states as well. The Constitution of the United States only pertains to the 13 colonies. They don't pertain to you. You're not allowed to use it. There are only 3 articles in the Constitution of the original organic Constitution that can benefit you. It wasn't written for you, but it can benefit you. The Second Amendment, that you can right to bear arms. The Fourth Amendment. The Third Amendment is when you have a right to I want to say third court. Damn it. I got to pull my Constitution out, but it talks about court. Article 3. Article 3 court. You have a right to set that up where you can take the officials of the United States to court. Article 3. And then last but not least, the Fourth Amendment, that it talks about full faith and credit. I should have renewed that in my head. I'm not sure. But maybe on break I'll take a look at that. I'm letting you know that when they maneuvered around and started adding to the original Constitution, They had no right to do that. Why? Because they did not consult. If they were the benefactors on one side of the contract, they did not consult the persons on the other side of the contract, meaning we the people. Now, they're going to try. They're going to try and say Martin Luther King, and I can get back to you on that Martin Luther King piece. But right now, we're going to try to stay on target, because you know I have a problem of staying on target. So, I'm still talking about 1871, and I'm still talking about the second Constitution, and I'm still talking about they saw an opportunity to set up CCS after the original Civil War. A lot of you don't know there were two Civil Wars. The first one was bloodshed. The first one consisted of black on black. The Powhatan Confederation against the Algonquin Confederation. 1855. Bloody. And the purpose of that war was spreading the blood of the original indigenous Americans, the Moors, with the blood of the Europeans. Pocahontas historically was what was used to show that John Hawkins, a Christian Peckerwood, who came over to America or United States, where I don't know where he came in, but he came over to North America on ship Jesus. And upon arrival, I don't know the timetable, he fell in love, and married Pocahontas. She loved him. It supposed to have been one of them dream affairs. I don't know. She probably never seen a Peckerwood, and he ain't never seen a beautiful black prince. Bottom line, she was in a royal family of a tribe. Well, the tribe was part of the Powhatan Confederation. The great-grandfather, his name was Powhatan. He created this dynasty, this empire. He had two sons. The first son tried to get along with the Europeans. That's how they began to get a toehold in the Virginias. Upon his death, Alcapuchino, the leadership, learned the tactics of war from the European and then began to run them off the continent. Kill them. Take that Jesus with you. Take that Bible, Jesus, and all these Peckerwoods and get off the island. Get off the continent. Historically, it's in the books. Don't look at me like I'm crazy. They wanted to steal the land. It's always been about land. There was a huge war, huge conflict in the years of 1600, 1640, along that time frame. The English or the European finally defeated the Powhatan. At that time, the Powhatan was so strong because the Algonquin were part of it. But when Christianity began to play a role in survival, and the men and women began to marry, it became a conflict. So as late as 1840s, 50s, 60s, mid-50s, about the latest, war broke out between the Algonquins and the Powhatan. The Algonquins won the war, but they were wounded because of the damage of the war. This is when the Europeans saw an opportunity to use CCS, and that would be create a crisis between the rest of the nation against the Algonquins, escalated to such a degree that they would start signing treaties and peace agreements. That was the key, because they never could defeat the Moors. They could never defeat the Moors. So they began to set this up. Now, when the Europeans saw that they were gaining ground and control, this is when they set up what I know today, and the Moors taught me, and that was they started the second civil war, but it was not a war of bloodshed. It was a battle of the courts. A battle of the courts. A battle of the courts. Get your Black Laws Dictionary, look up battle, which is battle, and it tells you that you're talking about court action. They began to take the owners, black owners of the lands, to court. And one of the earliest court battles was the one between United States and Henry Turner in 1848 on June 19th, Juneteenth Day, June 19th, 1948. That's when Juneteenth really was, because the courts ruled that the Europeans and or the English and or the settlers and or the colonists and or the Peckerwood had no rights, none, to own land. Because prior to that, listen to this date, you can look this up. In 1663, the King of England set up what is known then, now, and forever has been removed, the Proclamation Line. Look up the Proclamation Line. Look up the Proclamation Line, and it'll tell you that the King of England told those settlers, all them Europeans, stay on the east side of the Alleghenies. You are not allowed to cross the Alleghenies. It's not your land. You're only from contract, which put in place later the 13 colonies. All of them were on the originals were always on the other side of the Proclamation Line. Wow, this is some heavy stuff. So the whatchamajiggers, them damn international banksters, going back to the Rothschilds and all them heavyweights, they saw fit they had an opportunity to take America. They already had set up what you know today as United States, but it was only a territory of land that was given to them to create a commercial enterprise and to pay the Americans for being on our land. They agreed to that. But in 1871, let me back up, 1862, going into 1871, 1862, going into 1871, they saw fit to go to court because all of the tribes were weak from the original war, and they set this thing up and began. There's got to be a word I'm looking for, but I don't know it. They began to take through manipulation and murder and rape, everything. They began to take the land from the blacks. All the power of the blacks were slowly but surely through, I want to say court system, but it was a corrupt court system, just like it is today. Corrupt, all in favor of the corporations. After this crisis that went on down in this church, down in the Mother Emanuel, I was talking to the wife, and I have a copy of Birth of a Nation. If you don't have it, you should try and find it. If you can rent it, would be a good thing. I'd hate for you to buy it because it was all set up by racist white supremacists who were setting up. They were part of the affairs. It was written about the affairs after the Civil War, the Second Civil War. They tried to make it look like it was a bloodbath. I'm telling you now, it was not a bloodbath. It was a battle. And on break, I'm going to get this Black Law Dictionary out, and I'm going to look it up. Let me call the engineer. Wally B, you got your Black Laws Dictionary. Look up battle. B-A-T-T-L-E, battle, battale. So, they finagled and put themselves in position and began to manipulate. They set up the Jim Crow laws. And now all of this was set up, listen to me, in the United States. They set up Jim Crow. They set up the black codes. All of this was in United States, not in America in the beginning. But when they set up the so-called Reconstruction, they give it the years of 1865 to 1875. When they put that up, that's when they began to spread out, come out of the United States into America and start taking, looting, killing, murdering, raping, doing all of the above in order to gain land and control, and set up townships that would void out black participation. Oh, it was me. The writer and producer, or the writer and the, must have been the producer of that movie, Birth of a Nation. His name is Thomas Dixon Jr. You need to look him up. Now, he was part of, in the 1900s, he was a very good friend of Teddy Roosevelt. And I want to jump into that a little bit after break. But I'm talking about gun control, and I'm giving you examples how they use CCS in order to gain control. And the only thing that's holding them back from complete police state is there's too many guns out. Too many guns. Now, the Second Amendment gives us a right. Now, if you don't, I'm not asking you to go out and buy a gun, but I am asking you to go to your county and apply for a CCW. You don't have to buy a gun, no big deal. But if you have a CCW, they don't know you don't have a gun. They're going to think twice. All they're going to look up is does he have a CCW? And the police and your license plate's going to say yes. But I guarantee you, they ain't going to break in your house. I'm not telling you, because see, when you start talking about using guns, they got more guns than you can shake a stick at. And them guns can do everything up to and including shooting around the corner. Okay? So I'm not talking about any type of militia outbreak. I'm trying to save your life, and I'm trying to get you to understand that their purpose in all of these murders, I want to talk about that when we come back. All of these atrocities, just think about it. We've had lone gunmen on campuses killing people. I'm looking at that one in the I guess it's in the Quantico area where the CIA is. That boy, that Asian boy, he went out and killed everybody. We can go back to Junior Bush when he was in 2000, I guess. They had them two niggers. Yes, niggers. They had them two niggers riding around, one in the trunk of the car shooting at people. Every time those kinds of incidents happen, the black folks, not white, the damn blackies are fed information where we need gun control. It comes from the Boulets and them AKA female snitches and the jackleg ass preachers. I was really surprised last week when this Bill Maher show, and they were talking about the crises, of course, but they went into a dialogue on words, correct political words that can and cannot be used. And he demonstrated it on the Republicans. All of the presidents that were running, all of the punks that were running for president made statements about the killing. They called it everything but a racist white supremacist act. And the boy told them in the church, I'm going to keep you alive, lady. I want you to tell them I hate niggas, and I'm going to kill everyone I can find while I'm in this church. And they played that, so there was no reason for no candidate to say he didn't know. And yet they all spoke out, oh, it was a tragedy. Oh, I can't see how anybody could go in church and do that. I think we don't know which way the world's going. They did all of that. The Democrats came back, and their positions was, we need more control over the guns. Then these niggas begin to talk about it. I love to call them niggas. I don't care what y'all say. These damn flunky, back-talking, black-talking, Uncle Tom, educated idiots that always say the right thing and they ain't saying nothing. And especially the males with no mustache. I just can't, for the sake of me. I'm from the old school, so I want to put that down as my credentials. I'm from old school, way back. But I've always had a problem with a black man without a mustache. Those are the ones that get hired. Those are the ones that get promoted in the police department. Take a look at it. You ain't got to take my word. But you got the preachers talking about it. You got the black news commentators talking about it. Talk show hosts talking about it. And all it is, why is it that we are the only ones that talk about gun control? That's just like when it's an election. We always got to have some celebrity come in and tell us to go vote. I ain't never seen no hillbillies go out there and tell them Peckerwoods to go vote. I ain't never heard of it. I'm telling you. I don't see how y'all can't see that. It's just unbelievable. That's all I can say. It's kind of weird. However, we need to talk more about CCS. They use it on all levels. They took Detroit away from the majority, black majority in Detroit, gave it to Peckerwoods through a series that took them 25 years. Took them 25 years to complete, but they all kept their nose to the grind, and they finally won. And now money is coming to Detroit from everywhere.
Message is received from 314-761-0440.
Money is coming from everywhere, and everything is being done. Downtown looks like a Vegas. We just filed bankruptcy. Nobody's talking about that. All the affairs that go on, it's just wonderful. You even got niggas saying it. Oh, I knew we just needed a white mayor. Anytime you put a weak, apolitical person, I don't give a damn what level, into the political arena, you're going to have a problem. And I don't really care what color he is. They don't do that. We do. We had the audacity to send Marva Reeves to the city council. Only thing she loved about it, it was walking distance to the casino. Unbelievable. Undamn believable. So, what we need to do, I see we have a caller, and we're going to check this caller out. Caller 314-0440. You have a question or a comment? Yes,
I have a
how
comment.
are you?
All right, this is yeah, I just want to add to the show and everything. I just sent you a website that gives some exclusive information on the timeline of slaveries that they're revealing to the public, basically saying everything that you're saying. And 3 different levels of the black codes, because they changed it. They began with the black codes in 1645, then in 1724, then in 1865. We got to remember that the popes or the high clerics are orchestrating that whole situation at that time, like the top aristocracy and 1% at that time. So Lincoln and all those guys and their acts are just the legs and arms for the high clerics and the families that fund the wars and all that. That's how they gain power and conquest. You understand? And to allude to the information that you gave today about the battle. Battle also means combat. Combat represents what you go to court. You can look that up in the Black Law Dictionary too. It's the same thing. What they didn't tell you is called the takeover battle, when someone actually physically takes someone else's land. And that's what they use. They use those 2 strategies. They do the battle in court, and then they do their dirty work to take over battle. This is up in the Black Law Dictionary as well.
Wow. Unbelievable. Good research, brother. Man, man. What do you think of my formula, CCS? Chaos, Crisis, and Solution. When they put that on you, there's no way for you to win. You'll always lose when the powers to be use that formula. And they've been using it since 18. Yep, they've been using it on us. Yep.
Exactly.
And
they have to use a mathematical formula because they're dealing with the high rituals. I know the audience are not used to what I'm about to say, but we as melanin-rich people have to get back into the spiritual sciences of interfacing with the earth to have the elements and the animals and the insects and everything align with us to attack this beast. That's what all nature is waiting on us to interface with it to overcome this. That is the truest solution when you speak within the linguistics of self-realization. It's all about sound and communication, things across.
Yep. Vibrations, tones, all of that's real.
That's why they had to change our language. For that reason. And they couldn't speak our language either. They didn't have the tongue to speak our language. Because, like it says in the Bible, they speak with a 4th tongue. So they speak equivocal. Equivocal means they speak it in 2 parts every time they speak. And that's why they got us speaking this way in those spell languages. And that's why we have to master this language as well. You know.
Wow.
And that's what we have not done. We have not mastered this language, and that's what we're trying to do. All this we're mastering the English language, what we're supposed to be taught in schools or self-teaching. You see, it's just a language. You just need to learn one of it, you know, and that's what we in. So that's why we're learning these definitions and all that, and We got to master the English language and not disregard it, because we're coming back to the sound vibrations of it anyway, because our original sounds of the words are in the English language anyway.
Yep. All right. You got it, buddy.
All right.
I appreciate you. Yes, sir. I appreciate you. All right.
Yeah.
All right, good people. We're going to take a quick break, and we're talking about chaos, crises, and solution. And we're zeroing in on the Second Amendment, which is gun control, the right to bear arms. That's what we need to concentrate on. Now, you may not believe it. That's happened all the way back to Trayvon Martin, has been engineered by the powers to be to move you from chaos, which would be the murder, of fighting in the street, to level it or raise it to a riot. And then they can pass emergency acts or certain executive orders to protect you, to say that you cannot own a gun, you get life, or whatever they come up with. But you got to understand that if you're going to be free and get private, I am a part of the process of being private. If you're going to be private, none of this madness pertains to you, but you're going to live among the thieves and crooks. So these young boys, I had a presentation this weekend, and I had a confrontation with two young black men, 25 and 28. I won one and completely lost the second. The first one, the gentleman had a picture of black on his chest and his back, a huge picture on his T-shirt. And it said that black people, black lives mattered. And it said that F you, blank, blank, the police department. I think I convinced him to get rid of that shirt, because it's an invitation of death. And I gave him a couple of examples of how it could be easily engineered by a police officer to kill him. And once they took a picture of the shirt and then made the report that he was not only resisting arrest, he was assaulting a police officer, which that shirt was assaulting. And from the conversation, it escalated where it made the police officer feel unsafe. So he pulled out his gun and killed him. I think I put the fear in him enough that he would take it off. But the second one was a little bit more complicated. He was well versed in his rights, and he was displaying his rights abundantly. He was talking about jurisdictions. He was talking about police. Once they leave their jurisdiction, their powers are limited, or there is no power. So I agreed with him 100%, but then I asked, who are you going to take your argument to? He didn't want to hear that. He said, I know my rights. I said, I know your rights too, and I agree with you. You have rights. But if you want to be a martyr, then let's get witnesses so when they kill you, we'll say that you were in your rights. But I'm telling you that the powers to be are not going to listen to you. And the reason is because you are a slave. And ladies and gentlemen, he went bonkers. I got to figure out a better way of laying that on them young punks. But he went bonkers. And so I said, well, let me apologize. Let's back up. And I will either distract my comment, or I will say to you that since you don't have rights, and he checked me on that, I said, okay, you got rights. But your problem is no one will listen to you. So I see now that I can't get you to understand. Because your life means nothing because you are a slave. They have a right by corporate law to discipline their slaves. And they have a right to make up rules as they go along. Because you are a 14th. When I said that, he went off again. I'm not a 14th Amendment. I said, have you told anyone or you contact anyone in writing to let them know? He said, I don't want to hear that. So anyway, that's the problem we're having with our young youth, with our youth. They read, they study. But the problem is they don't have the savvy or the intelligence to be able to use that knowledge to their best interest. We need to get out of United States by any means necessary. And what is difficult about that is the only way you can do it is mentally. And that's where the problem lies. We don't have like a cowboy movie. We can't have an infraction with the law, jump on our horse and ride up in the mountains, and they're not going to come up here and get you. You see what's happening up in New York. So you know that's out. You have no salvation when it comes to conflict with the enforcement authority, so-called authorities. You don't have any salvation. They make their rules up as they go along. But the only thing that keeps them from going completely wild is the Second Amendment. I'm telling you. If you could you don't need to get a gun. You don't need to buy a gun. You need to get a permit that you have a right to purchase a gun and a right to carry a gun, concealed CCW. If you do that, they're going to tell the police. They're going to put it in the meters. Your license plate will show that you are a legally gun-toting citizen, 14th Amendment. So they have to be cautious with you. Now, they injected a rule that is weird. I didn't even know it existed. My wife almost got caught up in it because she was going to a meeting, an early Sunday morning meeting out on a main thoroughfare, 8 Mile. And she was kicking a little high speed. Nobody was out there. Cops saw her, came up, realized she had a gun, and walked up to the window in a very aggressive, protective way and asked her where was it. She almost fainted. What are you talking about? Where was what? One thing led to another. It got to the pistol. She said, shit, I ain't carried that thing, and blah, blah, blah. Now, he let her go. Did not give her a ticket, but he let her go. He could have gave her a ticket for speeding, and he could have gave her a ticket for not announcing that she did or did not have a pistol. That's in the rules in Michigan of getting a CCW. And if you get a ticket, now they're going to take your permit and make you come downtown to defend yourself on that. Oh, it's terrible. However, if you are a private citizen, you'll learn this once you become a private citizen. You have nothing but rights. There is no privileges or you get your benefits because you're going to maintain your straw man so that you can eat and sleep. Since you don't own a job, you don't own a supermarket, you don't own a manufacturing firm, the only way you can operate in this corporate system, you must be a straw man. So when you purchase, when you go and do what you have to do, they're going to ask you for Michigan driver's license or Michigan ID. You can get away with a passport, but that's still part of the corporations. So it's going to take study on everyone all the way around. And as you know, we got some heavyweights that have done this. Brother Jonah Bey, Brother Yusuf El Kim, Kayim. All these brothers have been into, a couple of more brothers that I know of, have been into this thing and have executed themselves in this thing. But the process of CCS is an ongoing formula. And I'm telling you, the Europeans, the corporations, are baffled behind the 9 killings down in Charleston, South Carolina. But their concern is not as equal to your concern. Their concern is, why didn't you riot? Why didn't you burn the city? I better look at that. Creator operates in strange ways. I don't have the answer. I see it, recognize it, understand it, but I don't have the answer. Because no one could predict that would happen. It's unheard of. And now they're talking about bringing down the flag, that damn Confederate flag. And I was taught that the Algonquin Confederation gave the settlers, when they were declaring their independence from England back in 1774, 75, they needed a flag. And the Algonquin tribe, or confederation, or the Iroquois tribe, gave them a flag, the rebel flag. I was told that. And if you look at it, see, the knowledge that I have and the understanding that I have an overstand of the black condition. I have an overstand of the alternative to blackness or black history. I understand it. And everything that's happening is in a positive way, but at the same time, there's going to be, and there is not going to be, there's going to be suffering. There's suffering. Whew. I'm telling you. So you got to be able, see, I got another caller here. You got to be able to flex yourself to understand and not blow off the handle because you were forced into a non-winning battle with the corporation. We got a caller, area code 763-1137. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, how you doing tonight? My brother? I've been listening to you.
All right.
You're right on point with the gun control. It's just unusual for our community to hear someone of your stature talk about gun control and what's in the mix of gun control. The spin is that only people who are against us say what you're saying, And that's one point I'd like to make. The other point is on your C, chaos, crisis, and solution. All you got to do, you don't have to go too deep. Just look at that cop down there in Texas. By the time he got to the scene, there was no incident, but he created chaos, and then he turned it into a crisis, and then his solution was arrest all the black children. And the only thing that stopped him, that put him into a different point of view, was when the white boy taped him, and that made it so evident. He walked right past the young white man who was taping him as he was creating all of this crisis. He was in such a frenzy, he fell down. He dang fell on his face. And none of the media.
About the situation. You're talking about the situation in McKinney, Texas.
Right.
Okay.
In Texas.
Right, go ahead. You're right on.
And none of the media, when you initially watched the clip, all of the media, the news media, cut that part out where he fell down, and you only saw that if you went out to YouTube and looked at the whole thing. CNN, NBC, CBS, they all removed that section of the video where the cop was running, tripped over the sidewalk, dropped his baton, and went off on the deep end. And he was just, but it's to your point that he created a crisis, and then his solution was to. And you I don't know, I say we don't have no rights. So all of those slaves, he told them slaves, I'm calling y'all in. Y'all have privilege. Y'all don't have no rights.
Yes.
And that's where people get upset. We don't have no rights. We only have privileges. Because if we had rights, we wouldn't have to go around saying Black Lives Matter. Because I'm with you. Who cares? Nobody. You can say that all you want. No, who cares? Who cares? And I know that's kind of cold, but it's the truth. If you don't care about Black Lives Matter, what makes you think they do?
You're totally right. But now you're bringing up a good point that I talked about a couple of sessions ago, and that is, since he used the CCS to his advantage and it failed, it made him, that's why he got in trouble, because he couldn't engineer it. It wasn't engineered correctly. He created the chaos by screaming and running and pushing. And then he thought he had the crisis going as he began to slap the girl around and get him going, but they never broke into a riot or to escalate where the other police officers felt that their lives were in danger. So this is where, when I say the training system of the police department is so archaic, and they are so ignorant as to what's going on. They don't know what we talk about, for example. They're only using what they're taught in those schools, so-called training classes, and it did work. Civil rights back in segregation, all of it worked at that time. But now, no, it don't work. And that's what happened down in killing those 9 people. And that was, to me, was a hell of a sacrifice for it to be not out of control all through the South because of that. You see what I'm saying? And there's going to be some changes made because it did not work. In other words, you pull the rock off of the European, and now people can see that racism is a factor. White supremacy is a factor. That damn flag is a factor. And all of a sudden, everybody wants to take the flag down.
Well, racism and white supremacy are hand in glove. They run together because it has to run together. It has to in order for it to be
successful.
And it basically goes back to privilege. I don't, even as we've talked earlier, even the white man don't have he only has privilege.
Rights. He don't have rights either.
He don't have no rights. He only all America. If you're under America Inc., You only have privilege, which can be revoked at any time.
Yes. That's why
that's what people don't understand.
Correct. And that's why I frown on 14th Amendment citizens. They only get away with it because they created a citizen and we accepted it. They created an entity and we stepped in and said we're citizens, we're 14th Amendment, it don't really matter. And they have no idea.
And we don't really understand it. We don't really understand it because how come anytime an incident happens, the government has to investigate, and the first thing they have to say is that there was a civil rights violation. We don't.
Yes.
If we had rights, they'd be charged with murder, not violation of my civil rights.
Correct.
And the civil rights that they violated are the rights that the corporation gave me based on the 14th Amendment.
Yes. And you have never denied ownership of the title of 14th Amendment. See, every time you write a letter to the corporations, you should put in your first sentence, I am not a 14th Amendment citizen. So all of this razzle-dazzle-doozle that you've been putting down, it does not pertain to me. And now that I have an authenticated birth certificate, I am a private citizen. So I would advise you not to contact me anymore because you are a public citizen or a public entity, and I do not wish to have communication with you forever. Period.
But remember now that college professor just told you that the 14th, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments was like sliced bread. They was like the wheel, like inventing the wheel. They was. I embraced that. Why would I? I've been taught all my life that those amendments protected me, freed me.
Yes, and I read. I don't know if you were listening earlier. They told you in school that there was only two sections to the 13th Amendment. Number one, there'll be no more slavery in the United States, and number two, they would not tolerate involuntary servitude. Am I correct?
And I looked it up on a website that said that the 14th Amendment was never ratified. Then I looked it up again, and one of them said it was. So I'm going to have to do a little more research on that.
Wait, I'm talking about the 13th Amendment. The one that frees.
None of those amendments were ratified, according to this website that I pulled up. The 13th Amendment was never ratified.
I can explain that why they call it ratified, but I'm trying to get you to zero in on the 13th Amendment. There are 20 sections to the 13th Amendment. Are you aware of that?
Right, because I looked that up. I found all 20 of them.
All right. And number 12 says that there'll be no more slavery from Africa. We don't want you over here no more. And then it said that anyone of African descent cannot be citizens. Now, why would that professor bring that up and say that it was something good for black folks when it turned around and it actually said you cannot be a citizen, and we all think we are citizens of the United States? Now, figure that out.
But in the same sense of the word, with the birth certificate and the things that are in place, not being a citizen can work in your favor.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm telling you. You're totally correct. But we've been taught that the 13th Amendment was in our favor because they stopped slavery. And then we try so hard to be citizens and good citizens of moral character for the United States, and they still killing us. And they kill us because we're not citizens of the United States. But we don't know it, and we stay in the 14th Amendment category, and we're property. I don't think that professor knows that there's 20 sections to that 13th Amendment. He is a stone idiot. But he received all the privileges, and he received all of the fanfare. You see what I'm saying? And he would rank me in any conversation because he has credentials. I'm a high school dropout. Who in the hell told you that? And all I can say is go read it for yourself. You agree?
I agree.
Okay.
All right, my brother. You got off to such a rough start. I was.
Well,
you came out on fire today. I went, oh, but you just stay on point. Stay on point. You because people need to hear the gun control. People need to understand what's happening to them, and the part about the mental and the what I call the spiritual. What your other caller said, that mental and spiritual part is more powerful than what we ever know. Because if you ain't free in your mind, you can't do nothing with none of this. Nothing you could teach me, nothing you could say to teach anybody is gonna work if their mind ain't ready.
Yes, I totally agree. So I appreciate your call, brother.
All right.
I know.
In a minute, I'll let you go. I'll keep listening.
All right. Have a good evening. All right. I think everybody understands. Now, I want to make sure, and I was going to run that with that brother. I wanted to make sure that he understands, and you out there understand, that gun control is our worst enemy. And that's why they keep pushing it on us to come out. See, they can't do anything to us. This is strange, unless we agree. That's how they're maintaining international law against the so-called slaves. Number one, we never told them we didn't want to be slaves. Number two, we never told them leave the gun control alone. We'll take the Second Amendment. We will abide by it. None of this that has happened, no permit or no rule can stop all of this killing. This last killing of the 9 people, his father, who qualified as now see, they should put that daddy in jail. The father qualified as a citizen to purchase a pistol, and then he gave it to his son. I just thought about that. His son never got checked. His son never had a mental check. He never had a police report check, a background check. They're not even pursuing that. Think about that for a minute. I just thought about that. That's aiding and abetting a crime. The first thing they do when they get into a gun battle or gun crime, they track the pistol. Where did it come from? Or whatever weapon. They go after where it came from. And they admitted, I heard them say, that because it came up, that gun control never could have stopped him from killing because he never bought the gun. So, who bought it? Now, the daddy must have known that daddy had to be a racist to live in a house with a punk like that. You know, you cannot stay, if you are a man of God, you cannot stay in the elements of the devil. Shit gonna break out. I'm telling you. So daddy had to know that the boy was a little Looney Tune on the Looney Tune side. Somebody's got to ask that question. Has anyone investigated the daddy? Why would he give a mentally insane son, or a so-called mentally insane, or an imbalanced son? Daddy knew he had to be imbalanced because all his friends said he was crazy. One of them said he was so crazy he took the gun away from him, or took a weapon away from him and hid the weapon. I heard that the other day. Wow. That's deep. Nobody's even mentioned the fact that the daddy gave him the gun. Okay. Because if that's the case, a lot of this crime would stop. The racial crimes would stop. The hate crimes would stop. Because these quote unquote so-called background checks would bring out the fact that the person was not qualified to have a pistol. Well, they made it clear. Gun control would have never stopped this package unless you're going to take all the guns away from the good people. So I am not in favor of gun control. But I want you to know, as you talk, and they no, let them put you in position to make comments negative to guns. They use that to create regulations and rules and stuff to have gun control. Maybe I didn't make that clear. I'm trying to make that clear now. The situation in Colorado in the theater, guy went in there and went off on the deep end. We don't even have to talk about all the police brutality or police murders. Then you had the other idiot that went into the kindergarten or elementary school out in Sandy Hook, killed up little kids. That's not a coincidence. That's not a lone wolf type thing. That was engineered, ladies and gentlemen. I think that last caller made a comment a couple of weeks ago that Sirhan, the guy that supposedly killed Kennedy, he stands today. He don't even remember doing it. How is that possible? Where'd he come from down in that basement to do what he did? What do we not know about mind control? Anything to reach a lucrative solution to keep the corporations in power. I guarantee you that. There's nothing they will not do to stay in power. Nothing. But we have to be careful with our so-called leadership. I don't know how to put it any other way. We're going to have to be very careful in our leadership and not let them lead us to slaughter. Because I'm telling you, if we're catching hell now with the authorities, try to visualize what it would be like if they took all the guns away. What protection would you have? Kick your door in, come in your house, all kinds of stuff. And don't let me hear no one say, well, if you don't have anything to hide, you can let them on in. I'm not that type of person. I have my rights. I have my privacy. I have a right to self-determination. I'm not buying none of that bullshit. And you know we got some Christians that will run that without even blinking an eye. But if you wasn't guilty of it, you wouldn't be afraid to let them do it. You don't mind. I don't mind getting searched at the airport as long as they don't have an Arab on the plane. I'd like to be on the plane with an Arab that's got a box cutter and he's gonna crash the plane. Can you believe that? The entire 9/11 crisis was a CCS, and it worked perfect because the fear they put into people was enough. The chaos was crashing the planes, the fear they're coming back, and the solution was go into Afghanistan and steal the oil. Unbelievable. No ifs, no ands, no buts. I'm looking at that. I got away from it. But them Rough Riders, I'm going to connect Teddy Roosevelt, the Rough Riders, with Noble Drew Ali. I'm going to find that niche. It's too obvious for it not to be. Especially when you see where, and I got time to do this. I'm going to look up. Teddy Roosevelt and Thomas Dickerson. See if I can get. Don't want me to do it. Better yet, I got it. Teddy Roosevelt. And Thomas. Let's see what they have to say about it. Thomas Dixon Jr. was a Southern Party and donor to Teddy Roosevelt's campaign for mayor of New York. Essay and criticism on Thomas Dixon, a political cause as favored as Cuba independence and the election of Theodore. Wow. Thomas Dixon was the writer of, I'll put that in. That's how I do my stuff. Put in Birth of a Nation. See where that takes you. There you go. Okay. There you go. Birth of the Nation was produced in 1915. The campaign of Teddy Roosevelt to New York. Essay and criticism of a Klansman of 1905, which has a base for Griffin's film, causes as Cuban independence and election. Wow. I'm going to have to do a little bit more. Thomas Dixon Jr. Maybe he was, I don't know what he was. But anyway, I'm going to check that out. So if there's any questions, there he is, Thomas. I got a picture of him. He died in 1946 at 82 years old. He was born in 1864 in Shelby, North Carolina. That's where they caught that roof boy. He left southern, Charleston, South Carolina, and drove to Shelby. That's where he was headed. Now I got to figure out what does Thomas Dixon have to do with, and he was a Southern Baptist playwright, maybe he wrote it, lecturer, North Carolina state legislator, lawyer, and author. Perhaps best known for writing The Klansman, which was to become the inspiration for D.W. Griffin's film, Birth of a Nation. That's what it was. He was a prominent supporter of the Republican Party and donor to Teddy Roosevelt, a campaign of mayor of New York. Wow. Now, you know he had to be a stone racist. Why would you say that, Ron? Well, he wrote his first book was called The Klansman. He was a state Congress legislator. His father was a wealthy landowner of English and Scottish descent and Baptist minister. As a young man, Dixon Jr. inherited a large number of slaves and property from the first wife, from his first wife's father. Dixon, while not an abolitionist, did not want to own slaves himself. At one point, he was offered $100,000, roughly $5,000 for his slaves, but he declined the offer, worried that their new owner might mistreat them. In his adolescence, Dixon helped out on the family farm. He grew up during the Reconstruction following the Civil War, the Second Civil War. Government confiscation of farmland, the corruption of local politicians, and particularly the vengefulness of federal troops, coupled with the general lawlessness of the time, all helped to shape young Dixon into a staunch opponent of what he called one of history's greatest tragedies. Dixon claimed that one of the earliest memories was of a woman who pleaded for her family's help. I got to do some research on this guy. But we're coming to the top of the hour, and I just wanted to make it clear that they're going to work. We have no control over it, but I want you to see what they're doing or trying to do in order to get more control over the guns. The same way they established all through the Bush era. They established not only 9/11 to create multi-millionaires from the oil, stealing the oil from the Caspian Sea up in upper Afghanistan. And everybody lying about who actually destroyed those buildings. He also created one of the largest federal agencies in the history of the United States, supposedly under one control, known as Homeland Security. And let's not forget, he put his buddy Brownie in charge of it, who was can't even think of that. He had no idea, he had no background in politics. It was a mess. It is a mess. But remember, all of that belongs to the United States. We have to think independent, we have to think privately, and we have to think to get out of this madness known as United States Inc. So, until next week, Tuesday, I'm going to do a rerun tomorrow with Beverly D. rerun. Then we're going to do a tape for Saturday. And I'll be back next Tuesday night.